Diane Stout, founder and CEO of Vinco Bar Exam Coaching, and welcome back for another video where we are interviewing one of our amazing alum. We have Christina joining us today to share a little bit about her story. I'm super excited to have Christina here because she worked with Vinco on her first time taking the bar exam, and that is a little bit more of a unique path for us. And so I'm super excited to get her input and advice for you guys. So welcome, Christina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Just celebrating your success. That's how I am. Congratulations again. We're so happy for you. So proud of you to be getting started with your career. So I'm going to just jump right in and talk a little bit about your process to decide to work with a bar exam coach and get that one-on-one support, right? Like as we were chatting about earlier, most people who hire Vinco are repeat takers because it is an investment, right? You're paying for your bar prep class, then you pay for someone you know aren't working for the most part when you're taking it as a first-time taker. And so I totally understand that, but I would love to hear like what went into making that decision, and then B, what kind of support like were you looking for?
So for me, it was more I didn't know how to attack studying. Now, I knew I would have my bar prep company, but just from my experience from all the tests that I've taken, the one size fits all approach has never worked for me. By far, like anytime I did anything, whether it be studying for the LSAT, studying for my SAT, studying for my Regents, studying for my finals in undergrad, if ever I did something that was just sort of this works for everyone, it never worked for me. And like you just mentioned, the bar exam is a big investment. Even if you don't do coaching, you're still paying upwards of $2,000, $3,000 for your bar prep course and your supplements, and you're not working. So for me, I was like, knowing my sort of testing weaknesses, or not even weaknesses, just knowing I've never been that like average student that can do the things that work for everyone. I said, let me just put up the investment right now, get a coach, and only have to take this exam once.
So sort of just really based on like knowing yourself and what your previous experience had been there. I love the one size fits all thing has always worked for me because I'm 4'11". You've seen me in person. A lot of our students, actually, that's funny. This is a unique situation. A lot of our students are shocked when they meet me in person because they said they never thought I'd be that short, but I'm really short. And so I love to use that example because I'm like, I can't ever buy anything off the rack. One size does not fit all because it does never fits me. So I love that. And I think that that's my philosophy to education in general, right? Is like we start with those best practices, and then we take them and we make them for you. So I think that's great. And some people come to me on their second or third time and say, I had this inkling. They had that self-awareness, but they were like, I didn't want to make the investment. Like I thought I could just do it, upfront on my own. And then they're like, okay, now let me try this out. So I love hearing that. And now, was this a situation where you were sort of looking at a bunch of different places to try to figure out like what options were out there? Like what kind of research did you do? What were you looking into?
Well, I was initially looking at like bar prep tutors, which was sort of not really what I was looking for, because at least the ones that I found, they were one geared towards repeat takers, but they were also geared towards people who didn't know the law. And that wasn't really my, issue. I was a decent to good law student. I did okay in my first year. I never really had a problem understanding the law. Sometimes I had a problem giving the professor what they wanted in the way they wanted it. Even in my finals, I got a lot of the feedback I got was like, your conclusion is correct, your understanding of the law is correct, your analysis is not even weak, just not in depth. It's not, um, I guess panned out enough. Like I'm very conclusatory.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that a tutor or a traditional tutor was going to help me with that, because they could tell me the law all they want. If I don't know how to write the law, me knowing it wasn't very
Right. If
helpful.
you can't give it to the graders in the way that they want to see it. And I will say like, this is usually, I think it'll be so helpful for people to hear your thought process on this, because this is very often the thought process people go through on the flip side of not passing the first time is this, oh, I really did know the law. Maybe I spent too much time, there. And so it's very unusual for me to have a consult with someone who said I was focusing on the mechanics of the test, on the, needing to know how to fix up my analysis and all of that. So I think that would be very helpful for people to hear. I also want to talk about, studying for the bar exam during the middle of an international pandemic where, I don't remember with your bar exam. I know in New York, we had the bar exam that was canceled twice and it was stressful no matter where you were. Right. And so I want to ask about this because I often hear from students two things, like my situation is so complicated and overwhelming that I can't do it. And that might be a real valid thing based on their situation, but they feel like they can't do it. Then I have students who are like, I have a hangnail and I can't do it. And so I want you to talk about like the fact that you really faced like very real challenges that threw a lot of people off track and maybe even resulted in them not passing. Like, how did you navigate that and stay on track to reach this goal?
Well, two things. One, and I'm just going to be candid, therapy. I went back to therapy.
That's how I got through it. So I guess.
And props to my therapist because he helped me with breakdowns aplenty. But I think a lot of it was just a lot of mindfulness and a lot of putting things into perspective. I was lucky enough that throughout all of the issues that I had, finances weren't a major one. So I did tell myself, like, I'm not working and I'm not, even if I wanted to be working, I can't work because it's a pandemic. So instead of me feeling sorry for myself, even though I feel like if I was feeling sorry for myself, I'd have a complete right to feel sorry for myself because things
For sure.
but it also wouldn't have been productive for me to feel sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And if I didn't, not even if I didn't pass, but if I just decided like I'm not going to do anything in these crazy months of nothingness, then I've wasted like a lot of time. So I talk to myself and like, I can't do any of the things that I want to do. So I might as well do something that I don't want to do when the world opens up again, that's behind me and I can spend time doing what I want to do. And I just have to keep telling myself that.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, I love everything that you just said. I think everybody needs to hear that. I'm like therapy for everyone. That's like, I think therapy should be free and widely available for every single person who needs it. But the core of your message, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing is like, I had to focus on what I could control, right? Like, and that was largely our message because a lot of times I was feeling helpless. Like students come to us and they're lost and confused and want answers. And I'm like, what bar exam? When will it be? Will it be? Where will it be? I know nothing. Right. And so that was when they were looking at us, like that was my message back is like, keep studying because it's what you can do. And it seems like that was really like what was pushing you. And like, quite frankly, that's what was pushing me to get up out of bed every morning is like, I can't control any of what's going on, but I can take this step today to get one step closer to my goal. And I think that's applicable to people who are facing other stressful situations while studying for the bar exam, right? It doesn't have to be COVID, it doesn't have to be a pandemic, but maybe they're working full time or they're parenting or they're taking care of their parents or something else that it's like, okay, what can I do that's in my control? I think that's an incredible message. So now that you've passed the bar exam, for sure people are going to ask for your advice if they aren't already saying, hey, what did you do? Tell me. You have your friends who were a year behind you or a semester behind you, or maybe who didn't pass. So what is going to be the best advice that you give someone who's studying for the bar?
I mean, honestly, run your own race because I didn't do anything.
Yes, Christina, you're crushing these answers.
No, like honestly, like I didn't do anything traditionally. I didn't follow Famous's schedule. I did follow my coach most of the time, but there were times when it's just like, I'm not doing this right now. You have to know yourself. When I say like run your own race, I don't mean delude yourself. I don't mean like tell yourself, I can study 2 hours a day and pass. That's probably not going to happen. But if you know yourself and you can be honest with yourself, I think ultimately you need to go with your own instincts. I got called a month before the bar exam by the, I guess, student services at my school, because they can, my bar prep company reports your completion rate. And
Yeah.
they were basically like, well, you're gonna fail because you've only completed, they has like the percentage rate. And
Yeah.
at the end of it, I completed 50%. And I'm not saying that that's what everybody should do.
But you were doing other things too, because you weren't just following their, thing. And I think with run your own race, an important part of that message is, and don't worry what everyone else
Right.
is doing, right? It's like, that's what we do. I have a student who keeps arguing with their coach that they want their coach to change the plan and make the plan what the student wants. And the coach is like, listen, I'm just giving you advice, but I'm not going to change the plan to match what you want to do if I don't think it's a good idea. So like you have to take that advice and make it your own. You got what you were getting from Themis, which wasn't bad advice. It's just general advice. You got what you were getting from your coach, which was more specific, but still like they're not following you around all day. They don't know your energy level at a particular moment in time or where your mental health status is on a particular day. You have to take that and make it your own. And what you cannot be worried about is what, Joe Schmo is doing around the corner, because what works for him might not work for you. Like that is, the comparison gets off the charts, as I'm sure you remember from law school. And then it's the same way into the bar exam. So I love that. I hope people wrote that down and take that with them into bar prep. So the last part that I want to talk about is a little bit more about working with Vinco specifically, because that's part of the reason I like to do these videos, is to give people a little bit more of an idea of like what it's like to work with us. So you sort of already touched on this. My biggest challenge in my whole life is explaining what bar exam coaching is. And so you already sort of explained that you feel like you weren't looking for that explain the law to me. It was really, just to clarify, I guess I'm saying, like, to you, coaching was more about the skills part, or was there more to it than that as well?
So I feel like there was more to it. I feel like the initial few sessions was more the skills part. I feel like after that, I kind of got the skills together, but then it was just more game plan. I'm someone who can really spin my wheels. I'm someone who never feels like I'm doing enough. And if I feel like I'm doing enough, I feel like I must be deluding myself. So I definitely need that person there to add some perspective, or sometimes just validate what I already know, but I'm too afraid to acknowledge, like, I did enough today. Like, I know this, or I know this as well as I'm going to know it. And that's okay.
Good as that's going to get with that little property thing over there.
Right.
And that's fine. Yeah. I think we underestimate, or people don't necessarily think about that value in the confirming. Like sometimes you have the good idea, but if the insecurity is going to eat you alive and force you to not listen to it, it's worth the money to have that person, right? Not that this is all that they do is, be your yes man, but be able to say, hey, I'm looking at this from the outside with years of expertise in this. And I can tell you, good plan, bad plan, did enough, didn't do enough, on the right track, not, on the wrong track. And so I think that is something that's important to us to be looking out for. So I'm glad to hear that panned out for you as well. Yeah, I sometimes wish that I had just called it tutoring, because this is how I spend my whole life, is trying to explain, well, tutoring is this and coaching is this. And what I've come to learn though is that coaching is really different for every student. So I like to ask the question, because I hear all these different answers and then other people hear them. And then totally self-serving, which is my last question, is what was your favorite part about working with Vinco? And you can't say Steph, because she's everybody's favorite part about working with Vinco and we love her dearly. But to say, like, you went through the whole program, you really were part of the community and utilized, a lot of the features that we have. What was something for you that you were like, wow, like that was really important to me during bar prep?
It didn't feel like law school part two. And my bar prep company did. And I loved my bar prep company. I think they were really good, but they were constantly comparing you to the other students. And that was the part I hated worst about law school in general. And it was constantly like there was this completion like calendar, and every task you did, it would say, well, you've completed 2%. And it was all about numbers and comparison and making sure you have these like arbitrary kind of like benchmark. And it was the same for everyone. And for me, especially during a pandemic when I'm already stressed, it really was nice to just be like, here's my essay. And it's like, you did better than you did last week. Like, you didn't know how to write this rule statement last week, but you've got it. And it's very personalized. And it's just like, I can see my personal growth. I don't have to constantly worry about, have I caught up to Joe Smo, who,
We're leaving him over there still. He can stay over there on the
care
corner.
what Joe Smo is doing. Like,
I really think this is a message. I'm so glad you brought all of this up. This is something, sometimes I get similar themes in these interviews, and this is something that hasn't come up a lot. And I just think all of this is such important messaging for people to hear, is like, be about being better than you were in your last essay. And because you're absolutely right, it doesn't matter. And as you said, that's not really a knock to your bar prep company. All of the bar prep companies do that. And I understand the mindset is, when you don't have that one-on-one, you have to find ways to keep the students collectively motivated. But for someone, and like, I don't know what the right word is, but I'll use myself. Like, I'm a little too fragile for that. I would take that like very personally, you know what I mean? And I would want to, you put a bunch of type A competitive law grads together, and we all want to be the best. And that affects us differently. Some people, when they know that they're not going to be on track for that, just give up, right? Or it starts to drive them to do things that aren't helpful. So I think to the extent that you can ignore that stuff during bar prep and focus on, challenging your own progress. I mean, this was incredible. Honestly, like, all of this advice was so great. Thank you, Christina, so much for taking the time to chat with me tonight. And again, congratulations. And we can't wait to see what you do with your career. We'll be watching. You can't ever leave Vinco. You're here for life now. That's it. So for those of you watching, I really do hope you were taking notes. If not, rewind, go back to the beginning and take some, because this was amazing advice. And be sure to check back again soon for the next video.